Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to the start of the next Buzzwordathon reading vlog, and it's Friday, the 2nd of May. I was hoping to start this yesterday, but life happened and family happened and this vlog didn't start yesterday, and because of all of that, you know, this week has blown out to being a thing, so I am a little bit frazzled, but we are starting this vlog because I was so excited to start the month by reading one of the books for this reading vlog, and I just want to start reading it so badly. While I may be a chaotic mess tonight, and I might just get through the reading part of it, I don't know if I'm actually going to update you tonight on how I go with the book, but I am starting it. I'm starting it. I'm just forewarning you. Who knows how this weekend is going to go. I was helping out my family who are quite unwell at the moment, my mum and my sister, and that meant helping out with my niece. And I'm kind of keeping my fingers crossed that I have not picked up what they have because they were all in the same house and I was there supervising their nearly 2-year-old. What are the odds that I, the teacher, the one that's exposed to so many different things, who's recently been on her own course of antibiotics for various reasons, that I don't pick this thing up? I don't know. Anyway, that is beside the point. Welcome to the vlog. It is the Buzzwordathon vlog. If you are unfamiliar with this, every month this year I am participating in Kayla from Books and Lala's Buzzwordathon reading challenge, which has a word in the title prompt as well as a image on the cover prompt. This month the title prompt is to read a book that has 2 or 2 in it. Yay for homophones. And I'm planning on reading A Week to be Wicked by Tessa, which is a historical romance. There are a very small number of historical romance authors that I read, and Tessa is one of them. So I'm excited to sort of be getting into some of the titles that I own but haven't read yet. And then for the cover image prompt, which was eyes on the front cover, I'm finally going to be reading When Women Were Dragons by Barnhill. There's a dragon eye here. I'm so excited. I'm hoping that my excitement level outweighs I'm not 100% certain whether my head is in the right place for this book tonight, but I'm reading it because the enthusiasm level is super high. If you're unfamiliar with my experience with this book, I first read the first chapter of this book for a try chapter a couple of months ago, and I was immediately hooked. So the first chapter sets the scene for a world where women turn into dragons, and I just want to know the entire reasoning behind that. I love Kelly Barnhill's writing. I've read her middle fiction, I have read some of her adult short fiction. I can't remember, I think this might be my first full-length adult title by Kelly Barnhill, and I just cannot wait. I'm going to settle myself after work. It is only it's 10 to 5. I'm going to shower and eat and sort of regulate myself before I dive into this. And then I'm going to talk about it with you later. Hi everyone. So I didn't end up updating you after I finished When Women Were Dragons, and it's kind of been a couple of days since then because I actually got sick the night that I was reading it, which was really unfortunate. But I loved this book. Like, it's going to be one of my favorites of the year. And maybe I'm just a huge fan of Kelly Barnhill's writing, but I also think this book, which is very much about women's issues and the way that people never talk about women's issues, that this book is the analogy for that. And it's so prevalent and so relevant to this day. It starts off in 1955, which is when the first mass dragoning happens, or the first noted mass dragoning happens. Our main character is Alex Green. She's only a child when this first happens, and we are told the story from her perspective, as well as through articles and hearings from other characters in the book. So when Alex is growing up, when she's quite young, her mother has been away for a period of time and her mother comes back. We learn later that her mother had cancer and was being treated for cancer, and eventually later in the story dies when the cancer comes back. So just keep that in mind. But at the start of the story, Alex is being raised by her father, who is relatively distant, and her aunt Marla, who is larger than life. And then when Alex's mother comes back, Alex notes how close her mother and her aunt are until they're not anymore. And where Marla is very outspoken about women's rights, she's a mechanic, she was a WASP, and she is a very strong, independent woman. She begins to see that there are clashes between her mother and Marla over those kind of issues. She doesn't really understand them yet because she's still a child, but she recognizes that there's a rift. And then eventually Marla gets married and has a child, and Alex is besotted with her cousin. At the time of the mass dragoning, Marla becomes a dragon. When that happens, she leaves, and Alex's mother goes and collects the cousin, brings her back, and goes, "This is your sister." Alex's mother won't talk about the fact that her sister has left, has become a dragon. She is obsessed with stopping Alex from getting any ideas about the dragons. And really the dragons are a symbol for women standing up and stepping out and saying, you know what, this situation isn't working for me. when women turn into dragons, many husbands end up eaten, or partners end up eaten, because they've been unfaithful and cheated, or because they were abusive or whatever. So the symbology is there is women rising up and turning around saying, no, we're reclaiming our power, and they become these beautiful, majestic dragons. However, the media and government decide not to acknowledge that it even happens. Any mention of it disappears from news articles. If you talk about it, you are silenced, etc. So like there's that analogy of, you know, anything that happens to women, anything that positive happens to women, anything that is seen as being feminine is being suppressed. As Alex grows up, she ends up becoming her cousin's mother and caregiver after her mother dies, and basically her father becomes the absentee father. He buys them an apartment and says, you deal with her, you raise her, and I'll send you money, but you're in charge of her, because his mistress is pregnant and they're going to get married. So he supplants his previous family. And Alex is determined to go to college, which is not something that is common for women. Everyone around her tells her that she can't do it, except for the town librarian, who is a fierce supporter of hers. And ultimately, Alex's story is her coming to grips with what's happening around her, understanding what's happening around her, because she's fed so much information. She's curious and intrigued by the dragons, but all her life she's been told, you're not allowed to talk about the dragons. Talking about the dragons is bad. Being anything other than the polite, meek girl who will eventually go on to get married and have kids and not have a career, that is your goal. All of that messaging is conflicted inside her. And so when she is forced to confront a lot of it, she lashes out, and she doesn't know why. She said, I don't know why I'm angry. I don't know why I'm responding this way, only that I am. And it's really, really fascinating. Like, it is a delightful book. I don't know if you can see my tabs, but like there's just so many things that I was sitting there and reading and going, this is great. And her cousin slash sister slash daughter, really, that she raises, Beatrice, is wonderful, because she is the daughter of a dragon. She is uninhibited, and she starts showing signs of dragoning from a very young age, which freaks Alex out. And she's kind of the heart and the light of the story, because Alex adores Beatrice. Like, she is the one thing in Alex's life that is good and light, and she wants to protect. So it's so fascinating. Oh my gosh, I loved it so much. I'm probably not doing it justice by talking about it at all, but I loved it. And then I had to try and find books with eyes on the cover. I have a lot of like romance books just with people with eyes, but I wanted to try and kind of be a little bit more intentional than that, sort of. So we'll see how I did. I'm going to start off with a middle grade recommendation. One of my favorite books that I've read so far this year, Willodeen by Katherine Applegate. The eyes are a pretty big feature of this. And this is a screecher. They are an unlovable creature. This book is just absolutely adorable. Our main character lives in a world, in a small community, where the screechers have been hunted, and it has had an adverse impact on the local environment because they were part of the ecosystem. And Alex is determined to find the screechers. She's one of the only people who really likes them, and she fights to show the people in her town, the leaders in her town, that by allowing people to cull the screecher population, they've done harm. And it is such a good book. It is wonderfully written. Then a recent young adult title that I've read is Blood Moon Bride, and I've selected this one because there is just one eye. It's very deliberate in the choice of this artwork, that one eye is hidden, and our main character is looking directly at the audience in the cover, so I went with this one because of that. And this one is about Rhea, who is a hunter. She's 15, and in this world, when you turn 16, girls are taken to a ceremony where they are selected as brides for men in the community. And this year, the age has been dropped to 15, so she is being dragged along into this, and she stands up and she won't stand for it. She speaks out against the man that purchases her as a bride, and she ends up being sent away to be rehabilitated. And there she finds unlikely allies and friends, discovers her magic and her power and her ability to use that to bring about change in the world. It is great. Very much a feminist rage kind of story. Then a horror book, and this one is not technically an eye, but it's the place where an eye would be. It's What Feasts at Night by Kingfisher. You have the skull here, and there is a little moth coming out of the eye socket. So I'm counting it because that's a very deliberate choice in this case as well. And this is the follow-up to What Moves the Dead, which I absolutely adore. And our main character, Alex, ends up visiting a friend and discovering that the caretaker of their home has been killed, and that there is something preying upon the people who live in and around the grounds there, stealing breath. And it is delightful and creepy, and a really enjoyable read. Then a sci-fi romance that I'm enjoying, and I'm mostly doing this to plug my ongoing read along with friends is Rules of Redemption by T.A. Waite. This is our main character, Kira. She's looking directly at the camera, so I'm counting it because you can see her eyes. There's actually a fair amount of expression in them for a front cover of a romance book. Kira is a survivor of experimentation when she was a child. She's a survivor of war, and she lives her life as a scavenger until she finds herself in a situation where she is recalled to duty after she saves the lives of 2 alien children. Then she discovers that she's become a bargaining chip in a political maneuver by humans and a race called the Tuan. This is great. It is a fantastic sci-fi romance series. I've talked about it a lot. The romance that builds in this book and in subsequent books is just top notch. There's great banter. There's so many wonderful side characters. And then last but not least, I've picked one book in this series, but every book in this series, if you get the UK covers, would count because they all feature half a face, very prominently featuring the eye of the male protagonist, is the Sci Changeling series by Nalini Singh. This is Caressed by Ice, which is my favourite book in the series because Judd is my favourite character in the entire series. Very prominent eye placement. It's the same on all of the UK cover books with the black covers and the half face. Like it's a thing. The Sci Changeling series is a paranormal world where you have psychics, you have changelings, and you have humans coexisting in a world. The psychics or the Psi tend to have the political and monetary pool of the world. The changelings tend to live more in nature and are there as a counterbalance to the Psi, and the humans are kind of caught in the middle of them. And this book is my favorite. It's the 3rd book in the series. Judd's relationship with Brenna, he was part of a group of people that helped to rescue Brenna when she was kidnapped in the 1st book. And Brenna herself is dealing with a lot of PTSD from that, trying to recover from the trauma of being kidnapped and tortured by someone who is very unhinged. And Judd is a Psi who's broken away from the Psi network and it struggles with his emotions because the Psi repress them. They don't believe in having strong emotions for things, and he is now learning to re-acclimatize with living in a changeling community where affection and love and feelings are a huge part of that. And he feels a really strong desire to protect Brenna. But what's really interesting, I think, is that he never tries to shield her from things. He wants to keep her safe, but he never tries to stop her from doing the things that she wants to do, which for me, when you're going to have an alpha character in a romance series, that combination works amazingly, as opposed to just, I'm going to protect you and you can't do anything. He is very much determined to give her the time and space to heal. Again, amazing. And on that note, we're going to take a pause. I need to get to reading A Week to Be Wicked, which I'm hopefully going to do today, and then I will have some more recommendations for you a bit later on. I am back because I have read the 2nd book for my Buzzwordathon challenge this month, which was A Week to Be Wicked by Tessa. So this was for the prompt to read a book with a title that had 2 or 2 in it, because we love homophones. I love Tessa. I really do. Like, she's one of the very few historical romance authors that I will happily read, and unfortunately this one kind of missed the mark. Like, it was perfectly fine. It's the 2nd book in the Spindle Cove series, and it was fine. Like, it wasn't bad. I just felt like at times the main part of this book is a road trip, essentially, and I just felt like that dragged a fraction. That was a little bit disappointing, but it is about Minerva, who is a blue stocking. She's a geologist, and at the start of the book, she turns up at the front door of Kulin, who is a Viscount, and she is there to strike a deal with him so that he won't marry one of her younger sisters. And that's because he's a rake and he has a reputation, and she doesn't think that he is worthy of her sister. Instead, she proposes a plan where he takes her to Scotland, where she wants to present at a geological conference. In doing so, travelling alone with a man would ruin her, but she's willing to risk her ruination for the sake of her sister. And then it becomes very convoluted very quickly. Anyway, they end up travelling together. Each time someone assists them in their travels, Kulin spins a completely different story. So at one point they're siblings, at another point he is possibly a prince, maybe, who knows? And it is a series of comedy of errors where they eventually get to the point where they make it to the conference, and of course the fact that Minerva is a woman is something that causes a bit of a problem. I will say this one does have a content warning for the death of parents. It's historical off-page, but it is mentioned and discussed as flashbacks and through nightmares and through Kulin dealing with the fact that he survived a carriage accident that his parents didn't. So that is in there. And like I said, like, it wasn't a bad book. I still enjoyed myself. It's, you know, a 3.5 star, but I was kind of expecting it to be at least a 4. And it kind of wasn't, just because I wasn't really in the mood for a meandering road trip story. Because I don't read blurbs before I read books. I didn't know that, did I? But I do have a stack of books to recommend. I don't think I have TOO as a recommendation. I just couldn't find any books on my shelf and I was too lazy to go searching through my digital records. So we're stuck with the other twos. So starting off with a fantastic middle grade. This is A Snake Falls to Earth by Darcie Littlebadger. I've read this very recently, so I have talked about it recently. It is a delightful Lipan Apache story, and we are following two characters who live kind of in these parallel worlds. One's on Earth and one is kind of a land of monsters and spirits, and these two worlds converge as our two main characters find their worlds coming together in the effort to save the friend of a cottonmouth kid. I loved this storytelling style. I listened to the audio for it and I was at times sort of immersion reading as well, but my gosh, Darcie Littlebadger is a fantastic writer. I have loved their work that I've read. I've read 2 books by them so far and I highly recommend it. What should we do next? Okay, let's go with Return to Stringybark Creek by Carly Lane. This is a book that I read many, many years ago now. I mean, gosh, when was this published? It's probably going to say that it wasn't that long ago, but my brain and my memory is not what it used to be. 2019. That's a fair time ago, and I am blurbed on the back. So this is a fun one to recommend. So this is actually the 3rd book in a series that follow the Callaghan family. It's set in Australia. It's set in a small country town. It is the return of Hadley to her family hometown without her husband. When she returns home, she's reunited with one of her childhood best friends, Oliver. And we find out that Hadley's husband is putting a lot of pressure on her for various reasons, and their life is maybe not as perfect as it seems. And so it is Hadley and eventually Oliver's relationship. Carly Lane just writes the quintessential small town country Australian romances. They're very solid. Let's go with another Australian book. And again, this is another 3rd book in the series, although you could technically read it on its own, but I'd recommend reading the whole series. This is Not Here to Make Friends by Jodi McAllister. This one, as I said, is the 3rd book in the series. It's part of the Marry Me Juliet series, so it takes place on the set of a reality dating TV show in Australia, like The Bachelor. When the very first book starts, it is the start of a new season, and it happens to be when the pandemic hits and there is a lockdown and the entire set is locked down, so all the cast and crew can't leave. So just be mindful of that if you are not a pandemic reader. The pandemic is not really a big thing. It's just the setup for the fact that everyone is stuck together and that the contestants who are eliminated can't leave. Book 1 in the series is the MMC, who is the bachelor on the show, falling for an eliminated contestant. The 2nd book in the series is 2 female contestants falling for one another. And the 3rd book is the producer of the show and the villain of the show, who may or may not have a connection that precedes the filming of the show. This was fantastic. This is a former friends to kind of enemies / antagonists to lovers story, and it was my favorite of the entire series. It is wonderful, and Jodi McAllister has done a fantastic job with this series. 2 wrongs make a right. So we have 2 the number. This is a contemporary romance. It's a contemporary retelling of Much Ado About Nothing, and it is really fun. It's about Jamie and Bea. They have a meet disaster instead of a meet cute, and then they end up fake dating because people in their lives are meddling, and they are determined to prove their friends for fools through fake dating and it going horribly wrong, except of course they fall for one another. This entire series by Chloe Liese is delightful. The 3rd book is my absolute favorite. There's a thing about me and 3rd books in this video. Because we read a historical romance, I actually have a historical romance to recommend. This is The Lady's Guide to Celestial Mechanics by Olivia Waite, who I read in my Tome Infinity vlog recently. So I actually came to Olivia Waite's work through her historical romance. This is a sapphic historical romance and it is utterly delightful. I really do need to do a reread of this some point because I read it when it first came out. One of our FMCs, Lucy, watches the love of her life get married to a man. And then she ends up at a countess's home in London where she meets Katherine, and Katherine is recently widowed, and it is the relationship between these two. It is amazing, wonderful, the kind of historical romance that I like, and I should really, really make a point of getting back to rereading this. So that is my Buzzwordathon vlog for the month of May. Hopefully you have got some recommendations or some inspiration to pick up books for the challenge, either the cover challenge or the word challenge. I'd love to know if you are participating and if you're reading books for either of the challenges and what you're planning on picking up. Feel free to leave those recommendations down below, or if you have other recommendations, because clearly I was just grabbing what I could see on my shelves as opposed to doing a lot of digging this week. But that's, I think I said at the start of the vlog, I've had a bit of a weird health couple of weeks, so I'm opting for easy. I'm opting for easy just because I need that. I had a great time. I'm so glad that I finally read When Women Were Dragons. Like, that has just entirely made my week, and I've spoken to so many people about it since I read it and just how much I enjoyed it. And yeah, that's the best thing about these kind of vlogs is, you know, favorites come out of them. If you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment or a recommendation, feel free to leave a dragon emoji, because yes, that's an obvious choice. I hope that you have a really wonderful day no matter where you are in the world, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.